welcome to Season 5 and another great episode of the Big Time Strength Podcast. We have a great show coming up for you. First, let's take a deep dive into our sponsors. Our first sponsor, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is the software for strength and conditioning coaches. Join the thousands of coaches that log into TeamBuildr every day to write training programs, build questionnaires, and access and track athlete data. TeamBuildr is compatible with mobile devices, laptops, tablets, TVs, and now wearable devices, which makes it the perfect software for any setting. If you sign up with the code BIGTIME, you will receive a 25% discount on the Sports Science Certification course. Build the foundational skills necessary to manage data and learn how to transform that data into actionable assets for your program. You will also receive a free 10-week football programming template, which works automatically within your TeamBuildr 14-day free trial. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day, especially during breaks. Head to TeamBuildr.com and sign up with the code BIGTIME to save time and paper today. This episode is also brought to you by PowerLift. Taking your athletic facility from concept to completion can be a challenge. At PowerLift, it's their goal to make the process as seamless as possible from start to finish. Their weight room equipment is made of the toughest materials that can withstand excessive use from coaches and athletes alike. It's sought after for its unique design, customizable appearance, affordability, and their superior warranty that training facilities want and need. Their weight rooms are designed with the athlete in mind, and they pride themselves on the ability to outfit athletic facilities based on a team's unique goals. That's why high schools, colleges, universities, professional sports teams, and athletic performance facilities around the world have chosen PowerLift to help maximize their strength training facilities. Call them today to be contacted with a rep in your area and give them a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to see for yourself why their clients are PowerLift proud. This episode is also brought to you by Vitruve. Vitruve is a velocity-based training system designed for colleges and high schools around the world. It is accurate, reliable, and affordable. The software is quick and easy to set up and use with a whole room of athletes simultaneously. Coaches have chosen Vitruve because it simplifies VBT and allows them to seamlessly integrate it on a daily basis. Check out Vitruve now for your school's free demo unit. We are at a physical education conference, I am at a physical education conference, and I was really just wanted to talk a little bit of strength and conditioning and physical education. And I have two great strength coaches with me who are here. And I said, let's get on a podcast and turn this into a roundtable. So that's why we're here. We're at Northwest High School, and it is a brand new high school. And you need to look this place up. I've never seen anything like this. And you had said this is not even the biggest or best. The weight room is phenomenal. So I'm going to let my coaches introduce themselves, and we're just going to talk a little bit of strength and conditioning and physical education.
Nick Crouse. I'm currently the head strength coach at Platteview High School in Springfield, Nebraska. Actually a big time strength alum. So this is my second go around on the podcast. So looking forward to having a nice little discussion here.
Good.
Mike Gettemy at Ankeny Centennial High School as an assistant strength and conditioning coach, where I also coach cross country and track, and I'm also excited to be here.
And I've heard we've been trying to track you down to be on the podcast for a while.
Yeah, we talked to the press a couple times trying to get on, talk about PE, strength and conditioning, kind of what we're doing here today. So.
Oh, perfect. So he might be a return guest later on. So I have nothing really scripted, but a big platform I find myself on lately is the fact that strength and conditioning is not necessarily taught or even taught well in physical education a lot of times. And I wasn't really aware of it until I started really coming to conferences. So I'd really like to find different ways to educate either physical education teachers or just bringing strength and conditioning literacy into the classrooms. And Nick did a presentation today, so maybe that's the first step. Definitely is we just start coming to these physical education conferences and talking about what a strength and conditioning coach does, but also how they can be an asset to physical education. So what did you talk about today?
So my first talk today was over developing a 6-12 performance program. And so we kind of talked, it's one of two presentations today. So the focus of that first one was kind of developing that junior high block zero and kind of transitioning into that high school piece, but blending it into that PE curriculum and how you can fit your foundational movements from your program maybe into those elementary levels. And I think that's kind of almost a starting point that maybe as high school strength coaches we can look at as far as developing that long runway for our program is how can we trickle into the PE setting. But like you mentioned, I still think at the high school level there's a disconnect, like you said, between PE teachers and quote strength coaches. And I think the best thing we can do is both professions need to reach out. We need to intertwine. I think one thing we've done over in Nebraska the last couple of years, they had a really good start on it before I got there. So I'm not taking any credit at all. But we've really focused on we need to keep our strength and conditioning track into our state shape conference, because I think that's where you reach those PE teachers that, hey, maybe I got thrown into this and I have no idea where to go. So we can make those connections and build that camaraderie, so then we can show people like it's not as intimidating as it may look and grow that base. So that way it's a safe environment for everyone.
I like that. And a lot of physical education conferences have college students. That's a big part. College students get a little bit of, either credit or kudos for going to those. So if we can set that next generation up where strength and conditioning's not intimidating, I think that's really valuable. How about any thoughts on your end as far as at a conference?
Yeah, so talking about like the next generation, for me, when I was in undergrad, when I was in college, I was coming to these conferences and getting plugged in from the PE side of things. And that's before the NHSSCA was getting plugged into these same conferences. But now the NHSSCA has the student membership, right? So if a college kid is coming to these conferences, they can join as a student and then get plugged in. I think like if you don't want to go the strength and conditioning route, certifications are great. Advanced degrees are great. I think the most ROI, return on investment, a person is going to get is becoming an NHSCA member and getting plugged into that community. Like I know Nick and I have, like, when I reached out to Nick probably the first time 3 or 4 years ago, we got in contact because of the membership. And I've talked to you many times before, and you've had people come and observe you because of it. I've had people come and observe me because of it. So I think just getting to the next generation via that way, getting that student membership, getting students to come here, getting them plugged into the community is step number one. I think also with building that next generation is the sites like myself and Nick and other places that already have a well-established transition program is being willing to mentor the next generation. So I looked at Graham Luntz, who's at Gilbert High School. He has a phenomenal internship program, and he's getting students from Iowa State University that are coming in, interning, and getting that experience. And he's getting student teachers as well from Iowa State doing the same kind of thing. And I just finished this summer building internship course and coordinating Iowa State. So I'm going to start getting interns as well at my school because I want to, like you said, build the next generation of strength coaches. So,
and I think through that, like you mentioned, I've had my first intern this summer. So like I'm kind of delving into that too. So not only being a mentor, but also showing people like my undergrad degree's in PE. And then I knew this is where I wanted to go. So outside of it, that's where I did all my studies. I think we need to show people like, hey, if you want to get into the high school realm or the public school realm, like show them the easiest way to get there. And most people require you to be a certified teacher. So go that route. And now, like we've mentioned, get into these conferences, connect through the association. Now we can start to really build things together. Then you build those connections through the association, leads to internships. Now we really get the ball rolling.
Absolutely.
I like it. Next question I want to ask goes into probably what's missing in physical education. I've by going to physical education conferences and talking about being a strength coach, and that it's like, oh, you're a strength coach. No, I teach physical education and strength and conditioning. And it kind of busts my bolts a little bit, because physical education teachers seem like they put so much time, energy into getting down proper technique for locomotive patterns, right? How to throw a ball. There's these, they're learning how to do video and delayed video and all this stuff. But yet we're not finding a way at a young age to teach our athlete or kids in general to bring their shoulders back, to get into an athletic position, to hinge at the hips. Those are skills in physical education. So that's definitely something that just busts my bolts, that I feel like is missing in physical education regarding strength and conditioning. What do you see it? I'll go you first, Mike.
I think what I'm seeing, is what I'm going to say is lack of best practice.
Yes.
Now, in the PE world, like you mentioned, we speak a lot on best practice and standards-based grading and progression, scaffolding, differentiation in that world. But when we look, I think, broad picture, and when most people look at transitioning the PE sense, they probably envision an older gentleman, football coach, the same program, set and rep scheme that's been going on for many, many years. And so I think, someone, in our world, we're teaching strength and conditioning, but we have the PE filter. We're trying to bring in those best practices. We're trying to bring in standards-based grading and differentiation. Like differentiation in our room, I mean, it should happen, and it does happen, right? Yeah. Just as much as you differentiate in the gym with, manipulatives and different locomotors and movement patterns that they're doing there, we do the same thing with movement progressions and regressions and lateralizations in our room. So I think broad picture, what it looks like to me is just the out with the old comes in with the new is what I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm. You hit it right on the nail. Like, so many best practice ideas, but because they don't know in general or intimidated by it, a lot of times it gets skipped over. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, in the realm of our profession, as far as strength and conditioning, we're relatively young still. So we still need to grow. But for whatever reason, when we enter a weight room, that disconnect between physical education and proper movement patterns, locomotion, things like that, then it all of a sudden turns into results-based. How much weight, X weight on the bar, number of times, boom. And then we've got to plaster it all over the place. When we forget, like, what's the key reason we're in the weight room? Like, why do people enter the weight room? It's probably to get better as an athlete or their sport or whatever, right? They want to get stronger because of X. Yes. So if, like, we use the bench press or the squat to get better for X, we want to develop strength for X. Well, if we're not linking that, and again, it's that disconnect. Why all of a sudden does weight equal performance on a bar? Well, when it may be just a closed exercise. So I think we need to start really asking questions as far as, what we're doing really good for the development we're wanting? And are we pairing up what we're teaching in physical education to now link it and take the next step in our strength and conditioning programs? I think, again, it's that stigma that we still need to fight through. Yeah. And like Mike said, you've got maybe people who've done it X number of ways so long and they've had success, so they don't want to grow. But I think we need to continue to push the envelope and challenge people to grow and understand, like, where do we really need to go? Like, where should we be going? What's the best practice?
Yeah. And Nick mentioned in his presentation today, and I use the same analogy, this exact same analogy with my students too. When you're in 6th grade and you walk into math class, you're not learning calculus. Yeah. There's going to be a progression over the next couple of years on where we want to get you to go. The next logical step in the progression is what I say to the kids. So when you come into the weight room, like, many of them, like, maybe it's a coach or a student, they have in their mind, like, okay, I need to do this to get this result. But there actually needs to be a progression up to whatever you say that is. They envision better bench press, better football. But actually, there's a progression that gets you there.
Maybe you start your throwing unit in kindergarten with a speedometer right away. That's equivalent to what people think that they need to do.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, but just either put weight on the bar or move way, way too fast.
Right.
No, I like that part. Right. So we know, like, we've addressed that there's a discourse going on, and in a lot of our listeners as well are into strength and conditioning. They have a lot of knowledge. They probably could go in and teach a class and be wonderful at it. But what if you're in the position of either strength coach or advising somebody at a conference? What are the key elements that you would advise them to bring into their physical education program, and maybe even address it at different age levels?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of something I hit on in my presentation earlier was I think you go back and find your big rocks as far as your foundational movements, your squat, hinge, push, pull, carry, and crawl.
Yeah.
Like if you do a variation of those 6 things, you can teach the movement to start, then you can overload it with simple progressions, and then you can just keep growing from there. So it gives you a good starting point. And then you can build as you learn and grow and get more comfortable with it. And I mean, those are straight from Dan John. I didn't make those up at all, but they're simple. Like it's, again, going back to what we just talked about, I think it's so simple. People think it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like master the fundamentals and be really savagely good at those really simple things, and you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
How about think of classroom management? So a gym setting, how would you advise them to do it? Like what are a few either exercises or strategies?
Yeah. So however it works in your system or in your setting, create routines. So whether, they change out, then you go through your dynamic warm up and then you get into your movements, or however it is, create that system first. And then maybe you set it up as stations and you just go for amount of time.
Yeah.
So you've got, like I said, those 6 movements and you just have them as stations around the gym. If you're not even in the weight room, you're just in the gym teaching at the start. And then you go into the weight room, you can still set it up as stations in the weight room. You transition how it's set up. It's just in a different room. Now you can start to overload and change the different types of pattern as you're going, but you just hit those 6 things.
Any key cues that you would tell somebody, like, here's the key movements, or not as far as maybe, I think of myself, something I always am looking for from kids is I say pinch a pencil, right? Pull the shoulders back and, feet flat on the floor, lasers on the toes, lasers on the chest. I just give people those 4 things. That's what I'm looking for. Anything on your end, you find yourself using that language?
Yeah. So, I mean, specifically in the squat, I say balanced on the feet. So my kids know we say balanced on the feet. Nothing's moving or anything like that. Like they're balanced at all times. I say big chest, and my kids know big chest, boom, that proud chest. We're sticking the shoulders back, the chest is out. And then I tell them, we have mirrors on half of our walls. So read your shirt, sit just like you're sitting on a bucket. Read your shirt and sit on a bucket.
Okay.
And so for the most part, they can understand, hey, foot placement, big chest. Now, if I'm sitting on a bucket, they can think, hey, how do I sit on a bucket? And that really cleans up most of the stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And that's language that somebody can instantly take, and you use it.
Yes.
Maybe later on with them, they can use it.
And I think from a cue standpoint, you've got to find and use cues that they can visualize.
Yeah.
Like link it to stuff they already know how to do, because then it simplifies and keys up a lot of things.
Yeah. Like Fortnite back.
Yes.
That's what I say, Fortnite back. And they get it. Now kids are growing out of Fortnite, so we say turtle back. But Excellent. Anything on your end?
Yeah, I'm going to zoom out a little bit from what Nick said, but encapsulate everything he said. So if you had to zoom out and give yourself 3 core values right now, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, progression, efficiency, and movement quality. Okay, if we can anchor ourselves to those 3 and branch off either one of those. So when we think about movement progressions, and we're talking about somebody new to the profession going to the weight room, movement progressions. Think about your stable movements and give yourself 3 or 4 steps to get there. Okay, so maybe you want to get to a back squat. You're going to go bodyweight squat, goblet squat, landmine squat, front squat, back squat. Okay, give yourself a progression. So that's your movement quality, or that's your progressions. And then movement quality. Talk about the cues that you want to have. Whether cues I use. So say for like a back squat, I say spread the floor of the feet, or tripod foot, neutral spine, read the chest. Those are things that I say.
Yeah.
And the last one, efficiency. Like we have kids, whether it's 45-minute class period, 90-minute block class, before school, after school, you're bringing in X number of kids in. I have a class of 33 in a 3,000 square foot room. You got to think about how we're going to transition from the locker room to the warm up to the lifting of the weights and the transition. So get to know your facility, know your racks, know how many bars you have. If you don't have enough bars for everybody in the classroom, well, then you're going to have to differentiate your structure and think about, maybe these people are doing the barbells, these people are on the dumbbells, these people are on the open floor doing something different. So you just got to think about how you can, and like Nick said, maybe it's a station. Maybe you're working off just time. You have, this amount of time to do this movement, and then you got to move on to the next movement.
Yeah.
Just think about the the structure and the flow of your room. Just how we have like a flow in a gym, right? They come in, they do their instant activity, they go through their warm up, they go through their skills and drills, they go to their gameplay. It's very similar setup in the weight room.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it is, I see that's classroom management, right? And somebody from the outside looks in, I think they see the weights, the sound, the noise, the metal, and the classroom management piece just doesn't even resonate to come in.
And I would argue that strength coaches at any level, but specifically high school, has probably some of the best classroom management.
Yes.
There is. I mean, you have to have that management piece, not only for a safety standpoint, but like I mentioned, routines, and you talked about it too. Like kids, if you're well established and have your standards and your priorities, like classroom management is like that. Like it just comes.
Get your start and stop signals.
Yep. It's simple.
And what I really like about progressions and what we do is we have the same progressions for like a posterior chain, for a squat, for a clean, and for upper body, and then all the way up to our varsity. So we teach the progressions as a teaching thing when they're younger, and then we say, this is what our varsity football team does. This is what our varsity volleyball team does. And that can resonate that we're not just doing it because we're little and learning.
Right.
So I like that. Let's talk a little bit about what if it's not there, and our role as, you mentioned that strength and conditioning is a young field. What is our role in making sure that it's happening? I think of myself, I knew that strength and conditioning was going very well high school wise. I had a few community education classes where I was doing youth, but I wanted to find a way to reach everybody and start out so people had literacy in the weight room. So I reached out to our middle school, which our campuses are connected. So we share our gym space. And I said, what if we switch once a week, and we have 12-week trimesters? What if we switch once a week and they have every other day? And it worked out really good. So the middle school teachers take my classes. My kids really enjoy getting their middle school teacher, and they play games or do something. And then I take all the middle school kids. Being on every other day, they get 6 sessions in 12 weeks, and it works out nice. So if you get that 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, by the time they get to 9th grade, they're set to go. But what if you don't even have a strength and conditioning class and you get hired on as a strength coach? What do you think are some avenues that way? Either one of you can take this one first, whichever you think.
I'll jump off here real quick. I was very fortunate being at Ankeny, where there was already strength and conditioning throughout the school day, every period of the day. So very lucky to be there.
Yeah.
Jumping off what you said, though, we have developed this. This is the first year we've done this, starting this summer, that we've opened up a 5th through 7th grade session for the summer. And so now we have kids training 5th through 7th grade. They'll go to our middle school, which is 8th and 9th grade, and they have strength and conditioning all day. And they come to the high school, which is 10th through 12th, and we have strength and conditioning all day. So it's very fortunate. So we just decided that the felt need was that there was a group that we were missing, and we wanted them to have the physical literacy that we want to see, when they get to the middle school, and then ultimately when they get to the high school, so they can learn the movement patterns, the progressions, the cues, the routines, all of those things. If we can start that at an earlier age, it's going to help us down the road too. But I think broader picture, as far as like displaying it to like administration and school board, being able to put together like a comprehensive plan of like your core values, the mission of the program, like why you want to start this program in the first place. Like, what's the vision? Where are you going to take this? What are the goals down the road? Why is this important? How it's going to be beneficial? Who are the other stakeholders that you can get involved in? So when I first got to Centennial High School, I got involved with our sports medicine, our head athletic trainer, and started getting data on sports injuries. And then so once we get sports injuries data, we can start to hopefully look over time trends, and we hope to see those trends going down if we're doing the job of strength and conditioning. So getting all the stakeholders as far as coaches on board and having them find the value, and every sport coach, they might not be on board right away. But what value could you add to them? So maybe it's not bringing that team into the weight room because the sport coach doesn't value it, but maybe it's you bringing the weight room out to them in their practice facility, and you're doing, band work or med ball work or things like that. They can add value to those programs, so you can get those stakeholders involved.
I like that. And adding on, I have an overview like you mentioned but I guess I always came at it through the lens of, this is what I'm showing coaches, this is what I'm showing our school board, our stakeholders. But I really like on your end, you could say, these are the elements that we would like them to have from 3rd to 6th grade.
Right.
And then you could put that right in there. These are the elements that we would like them to have from 7th and 8th grade. And this is how they move up. So there's a lot that you could do with that. Love it.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking on what you said as far as your core values and your organized plan, if you don't have a class in place, like you just go either before school, after school, or you don't even have anything in place, I think if you have the ability to lay it out and say, here's what we stand on, here's how we're going to develop and go from there, it's much easier to go to your administration, to your school board, and say, here's how it plugs into our PE department. Like if you can show them, hey, here's how it plugs in, here's how it fits from a physical literacy standpoint, from a safety standpoint, injury reduction possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you can lay all that out there, it's going to be really hard for your school board and your administration to say no to that. And kind of building off of what you kind of going back to the original question, when I'm the first full-time strength coach at my school. There was someone before and they had like 1 or 2 classes throughout the day, but I'm the first person that first bell to last bell where we have classes in the weight room. And when I interviewed, I was in the process at my previous school of trying to develop like a 7th, 8th grade class.
Yep.
And in my interview, I talked about that and it was implemented as soon as I got in. So how we did that is we put it as far as our 8th grade specials rotation. Like you have our junior highs on the same campus as our high school.
Yeah.
So they constantly come to our high school building for classes. So we just plug that foundations class into our 8th grade rotation. And so, I mean, it's in there. They can pick between like FCS, art, and strength and conditioning foundations. Awesome. And so it gives the kids a chance, and it's a semester long class. So I get multiple kids each semester. So I'm reaching even more. And so I think that's another piece is if you have junior high kids on campus to where they have a specials rotation, propose to plug it in. You're not asking for extra time. You're just asking for another course option because then you're going to see it grow and develop once you start. And then it gives you more footing to stand on as far as growing your program even more.
So an 8th grader with yours, they would have physical education and strength and conditioning. I love that. We were looking for something, I don't know, I just say the administration for the middle school, and they had tried Spanish. They knew they needed 8. They had tried some STEM stuff, and I think really ran into a jam, and that would have been ideal. I think they do music right now, music studies, which is a lot of kids just do not enjoy that, and if there could be an option, wow.
And again, that may depend on what your state allows as far as credits and things like that. Luckily for us in Nebraska, it fit right into what we can allow and offer to kids. So it plugged right in.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. All right. Just to finish it out, I know myself, especially if I talk with people, I always have to be conscious and always trying to basic it down, like being more and more and more basic. And, knowing that I have to try to not make anything intimidating for either teachers, coaches, but I really kind of ran into trouble. Like I was their source of education for coaches. So it could either they learn from me or they don't learn from me. And I think I need a few resources that I would love to be able to give coaches, even if it's just websites. I think of now some websites I use are Derby. I'll send a coach to. Here's, Derby is, I don't know if you've ever used it before, but it just has a lot of like circuits, kettlebell circuits, medicine ball circuits, so different types of circuits. I'll send them to XL athletes so they can see different things. What would you send a coach maybe if they want a teacher, if certifications? What do you think if you need to give them just a little bit where they can deep dive quickly?
Yeah, I mean, in our district, we're pretty collaborative amongst our PE department. So it's kind of one of those where if I've got something that's more of a game aspect, I may ask my PE teachers, hey, what's a resource on this? And they may just come up with something or tell me something they already do. And then on the flip side, when they bring the PE classes into the weight room, I may just put a simple workout together for them. So we're just using our professional connections on top of each other there as far as that goes. Kind of going more, like you mentioned, certification and kind of that professional development route for coaches who maybe are in the weight room but don't have a, quote, certification or looking to go that route. I think the number one thing they need to look for is find something that they're going to find the most benefit out of. Because, I mean, as we know as teachers, we don't make all the money in the world. Yeah. And so most times we're looking to either get a resource that's going to have a return on investment as far as a paycheck, grad credits, things like that, or a certification that is affordable and gives me the most in return on my investment to where I can plug it in simply. So, I mean, one of those for me was my USA weightlifting certification. I want to say that was $400, which is not a slouch at all as far as the amount of money, but it was a lot of great content and allowed me to know what I needed to know at that point. Okay, I didn't really know how to teach the Olympic lifts, gave me that, but it also gave me a lot more knowledge I didn't think I was going to get. So maybe find a certification to where it gives you a basis of knowledge you don't have already, but also doesn't break the bank. Just constantly look for something. Hey, can I plug this in? And does this give me more knowledge than I have? And then go from there. I would say that's the biggest thing as far as maybe a continuing ed piece. Because like you said, certifications can be, there's a ton of them out there, number one. And number two, they can be intimidating. Find something that's going to give you a return. Don't just chase letters, in my opinion. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
I had a strength coach the other day ask me if they should get a master's degree or a CSCS. And without a doubt, I said a master's degree is going to have a way better ROI than a CSCS will. And I have my CSCS, and I think it was valuable. And it might open up some more doors with you if you want to go to a private sector or college strength and conditioning or something outside of the public field. But I think the certification route is so dependent on where you see your knowledge gaps might be. Like Nick said, like my knowledge gap was USAW, was weightlifting. So I got the USAW level 1, and it was transformative in my career because up to that point, I knew what the Olympic lifts were. I could see them. I understood them. Some of my best friends were weightlifters, but I didn't feel comfortable coaching them. Well, now I do. And I think that certification served me very well. If you want a certification in, functional range conditioning or precision nutrition or sports science, there's all kinds of certifications out there that you can point somebody to.
And on our end, it helps to know the person, right? You have someone with a cross-country background, or they're very into social emotional learning. Maybe you get an RPR, right? Like guide them that way. Or maybe you have somebody that you already know is very good with locomotive stuff at younger. Maybe you dynamic warm-up movement prep, like BLE stuff. And diversifying your staff. You said you work really well with your staff. If you can diversify your staff, if I had somebody come that was a former athlete and I would guide them toward USA weightlifting, right? You already like this is of interest to you. Now let's make you an expert at it, or just getting a little bit better. So there's so much, too much almost, now there's sports science certifications, right? If you're a data person, you love the numbers, you love heart rate stuff. So knowing your staff, knowing your teachers, I think it could make it fun. And like strength and conditioning is the core of physical education. The other stuff is the extra.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Agree.
Awesome. Well, finish it out. As you move on in this career, what do you find is becoming kind of your, like, the most important to you? Like, what you want to, maybe an exit statement of, we talked about, making it for everyone. I find myself like, this is what my platform is right now. I want to get good common language, physical literacy of strength and conditioning into physical education.
Yeah. So that's kind of a two-pronged answer to me. I think from a professional or from kind of the professional side of it, I think being able to show like the weight room, the strength and conditioning program is an extension of physical education. I think we need to continue to fight that battle and build that bridge, because I think that's going to grow both professions. If we can continuously show that they are intertwined and they're not separate, I think that's going to grow the profession. As far as personally, what do I want my path and my track to go is I want my kids to know, like, I'm there for them. Like, I'm that resource. So it doesn't matter how I taught you how to squat or anything like that if you can't walk back to me in 5 years and have a conversation. Like if I'm a jerk, then that's not going to build a good person. Like that's the route I think we need to go, because as teachers, we can be transformational if we're showing them how to be good people, good husbands, good wives, good fathers, good mothers, everything like that. Like, I think that's where we need to go. We get caught up in results, focus on the person.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was taking that in two different paths in my head too. So I think professionally, where I was taking that is community, forming community with like-minded strength coaches, learning from each other. We have a diverse group of individuals that's in the strength field. Some might have strengths in different areas. Some might have strengths in other areas. I think it's important to come together. In the strength conditioning world, there's not a lot of ego. And I think we all know that. Like this podcast is a testament to that. People are always talking, willing to share. They'll get out with their cell phones. They'll give out, all the information. They'll send you their whole data sheets on Excel or whatever else. The community is super important to me. On the personal side, what I hope to portray to everybody, myself, my students, my staff, is time management. Because if I'm like, what kind of person am I? If I'm working 70, 80 hours a week, what kind of person am I showing my students? They're probably seeing me never home, not with my kids, things like that. And that's something that I took for granted my first couple of years working, when I was working 70, 80 hours a week. And since going back to working a more quote unquote normal week, I have more energy to give to those kids when I'm with them, as opposed to being there all day before school, during school, after school. And then when I see them out in public, I just don't have the mental energy or capacity to just engage in a fun, exciting conversation, to where now I do.
That's such an important thing.
Very.
Oh my gosh. I've made so many mistakes over the years with that. Oh, excellent. Well, this has been fun. We were looking for a space in the school, and we just happened to roll across this deep back in the hallway. I don't know how but a media production control room, and we're actually in a media production studio. So I hope we put together a good media production. But thank you. This has been a lot of fun. It was impromptu, and you guys did great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.